4, 3, 2, 1. Right here. 4 tires of fuel.
Ride 111.
Outside.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Foreign Fuel Podcast, episode 19. We had a crazy night of racing on Saturday night, which saw William Byron take home his first career win in his 98th career start. And as I've let Steve know, that is one start sooner than Chase Elliott got his first career win in the Cup Series.
Yeah,
So,
thanks for reminding me of that.
yeah, so I think William Byron's got a bright future ahead. I think it might be better than Chase Elliott's. He's got the win sooner. He might win the championship sooner than him.
Get him out of here. Bad take. We're starting off bad already.
Hey, I'd like to say that I only make hot takes that are going to come true.
Maybe hot garbage, but okay.
If you've looked at my YouTube channel, and I've mentioned on the podcast, Eric Jones will be at Hendrick next year. Kyle Larson will be at in Stort Haas within the next year or two. And I think maybe William Byron might outlast Chase Elliott at Hendrick. He might have a better career than him.
Okay, sure, we can go with that.
Well,
when Denny Hamlin gets part ownership of Richard Petty, then Chase Elliott's going to get part ownership of Hendrick.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, once Jeff Gordon becomes the owner of that team, he might realize that Chase might not be cutting it, and he might have to cut ties and bring in Chandler Smith to Hendrick.
Might as well bring in Haley Deegan straight from ARCA. Go right up to the Cup Series. You ready?
I mean, that's basically what they did with Quinn Houff at Starcom. I mean, Quinn Houff from ARCA, I don't even think he ran full-time in ARCA and just got a full-time Cup ride. And, speaking of hot garbage, you got that Twins hat on. So I'm just going to ask how your day was. Must not be too good if you're pulling out the Twins hat for the podcast.
No, I don't even know why I wear this anymore. 6 straight losses. I just checked. They are losing again, so we're on our way to 7 straight losses. Yeah, we're not even going to have a chance to get swept by the Yankees in the postseason. So it is what it is.
Well, I mean, the Yankees just lost 7 in a row before getting a few wins against the Mets, but yeah, it's been kind of tough with all the injuries, man. If NASCAR was like that, my team had a bunch of injuries, and Joe Gibbs Racing would be in trouble. Even though they have had injury issues, they've been plagued by injuries before. We've had Denny Hamlin out of the car, and then you had Kyle Busch out of the car. So, I mean, Eric Jones might be doing himself a favor by not coming back because he won't have the injury bug spread to him.
Yep, that's just seems to be Eric Jones kind of luck. He would get hit with something like that. Of course, it'd probably be in the last race too. Like right before his last race in 20, he'd be out.
Yeah, and, speaking of bad luck, one guy that has bad luck on NASCAR Heat is Wesley Riddle, and he's finally back again. Hopefully to stay, Wes. Hopefully you stay here for a few weeks and not, bail on us again.
We are hoping for that not to be a possibility in the future, but we're going to be back. Hey, I did race one heat race on NASCAR Heat in a league by this guy right here. I finished 3rd. Didn't get wrecked, so it felt good. Finally got a good finish without getting screwed by Ryan. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, if you for everyone that doesn't know, the highlight of bad luck came. It was in a league race at Kansas. And Wes and I were battling for the lead in the final stage.
The whole race.
Up front, the whole race, battling at the end, with about 30 to go at Kansas. And there was a lap car. He didn't know what he was doing, whether he was going to try to race us, go out of the way. Then he peels off to go to pit road and hooks it right off the banking up into Wes and I, who had nowhere to go. Had a ton of damage and finished, I think, like 10th and 11th.
Yeah, that might have been the most heartbreaking thing ever because I think we were like side by side, like driving around for all hundreds of, not hundreds, but like 100 laps, just having a grand old time. And then next thing you know, just stupid lap car gets in the way. We were been driving up there all day. Shout out to Ward Burton.
Damn lap car up there amongst the top 10.
With less than 15 to go.
It was close to 15 to go. It was like probably like 35, but man, that was unfortunate. That was definitely a downer. But we have moved on, and
we have
now. I guess we're moving into the real world. We've got a pretty big showing this week.
Yeah, got a lot to wrap up here, or not wrap up, but unravel when it comes to the round of 16. That's what we're going to mostly be focusing on here. So we are now officially in the Four and Field podcast war room today to discuss the round of 16, who's in, who's out. And I can assure you guys listening that 99.9% of our predictions are going to be right, just because we don't miss. We don't miss here in the Four and Field podcast. We have crunched the numbers for hours this past week, figuring out who's going to be in, who's going to be out. So if we say Kevin Harvick's being eliminated in the first round, you got to believe us, because it's going to happen.
And we actually do have Harvick out in the first round. So,
well, we might be getting a little ahead of ourselves with that, but yeah, we do find out here in a little bit. So I'm just wondering, Wes, do you think William Byron is going to be in that 24 car for a long time? He did just re-sign to stay through 2022, but do you think Byron's going to step it up and really solidify his spot at Hendrick Motorsports for maybe his whole career?
I think he's going to need a lot of work still. I know he got that first win over the weekend, and the race was crazy, which we'll talk about a little bit. But he dodged a lot of bullets. Granted, he did put himself in good positions during the race with the help of his teammates and with Chad Knaus making really good calls on the box, but it still just this year's not really shown a lot of success for him, besides maybe a couple highlights earlier in the year. I feel like we haven't seen a whole lot of speed in his car besides just a couple of races here and there. And it seemed like there were a few races last year where he was a bigger contender. So I think we'll find out. We'll get a good judgment, I think, next year with the second year with Chad Knaus to see how they've grown. Granted, this will be his fourth year that he's coming up on, but I think that we still just haven't seen enough yet to determine whether or not Byron's going to be like the next big thing in NASCAR, especially compared to, I know Chase Elliott's had some good success recently, so maybe we could see that out of Byron just with another year, and maybe see what he can do in the round of 16 coming up this week.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's going to come down to if Byron can pull the momentum and get him through the round of 16 and then maybe the round of 12. And if he gets into the round of 8 this year, that's a breakthrough for him, because he made the round of 12 last year. And then this year he sat on the bubble for the majority of the regular season, and to get that win with his back up against the wall. So you got to think a lot of pressure has already been relieved from him. He's made the playoffs just like all his other teammates except for Jimmy Johnson. And now all he has to do, and these first couple rounds have some tracks favorable for him. He's pretty good on the road courses. He's done good at the Roval. He's gotten a pole there. So Byron, he's definitely going to be a dark horse. Definitely watch out for him in the playoffs. Now, Steve, on the other side of Hendrick, you've got Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman, who already knew they were in the playoffs a while ago. Right now, it looks like Alex Bowman's kind of iffy.
Yeah, it hasn't been a good stretch for that 88 team all summer long. They got that win before the COVID break at Auto Club, where they looked extremely dominant. Even a couple of weeks into the return to NASCAR, was the fastest car at Charlotte. And but the past couple of months have just been really iffy for Bowman. It's been a struggle to even get a top 10 out of that team. So I don't see them making it very far. They're going to make it past the round of 16, I believe, but making it past the round of 12, that's going to be really tough. I think they got to get it into the round of 8. I think that's even going to be a little bit of a stretch for them. Definitely not championship form material. So I think right now, aside from Jimmy Johnson, if you were to look at the 300 cars that are in the playoffs right now, the team that does not have any momentum going is Alex Bowman and the 88 team. Do I think they'll make it farther than William Byron? I do, but it's a big stretch for them right now.
Now, what about Chase Elliott, though? Chase Elliott has shown flashes. He hasn't been as consistently fast as they were. They were red hot. They might have been the best car when they came back at Darlington and Charlotte. But now it's kind of hit or miss. Yeah, he got the win at Daytona in the road course, but that's a completely different phenomenon from the rest of these races. Like this first round is nothing but driver racetracks, essentially. You've got Darlington, Richmond, and Bristol. So how are you feeling about Chase Elliott going into this?
I feel pretty good about Chase Elliott. He's shown really good speed at Darlington, shown really good speed at Bristol, won the All-Star race there and nearly won the spring race there. So I think Richmond is still a little bit of a struggle, but then once you get past that, you start getting into places like Kansas. I know Talladega is always a strong suit for Chase Elliott, but I guess now they moved Kansas into the round of 8. So if Chase Elliott can make it to the round of 8, look for him at Kansas, look for him at Martinsville and all that. So it's just getting over the hump. Obviously won it at the Roval last year, so always look for Chase Elliott at the road courses. So I think if Chase Elliott can get to the round of 8, get into Kansas, get a good finish there, he's strong at Martinsville, I could see him being the dark horse as that 4th guy in the championship 4. I do think it's a possibility for them. It just comes down to execution. I see he's seated 5th going in here with 20 extra points. And I think if they can continue, just build top 10s to start. Just get on a roll, get solid finishes, finish the race. Don't make mistakes on pit road. Chase is going to, be good at some of these at tracks, and I think he's a car to look out for.
Yeah, and definitely good for Hendrick Motorsports to get 3 cars in. Obviously, they'd love to have all 4 in there. Just not Jimmy Johnson's year. A lot went against him. A lot of driver mistakes, a lot of pit mistakes, missing a race due to COVID, getting disqualified at Charlotte doesn't help you. So a lot of things went against the 48 team and did not allow them to make the playoffs. But I think for Cliff Daniels and that whole team, they've got to feel confident that they know they have a car that's consistently a top 10 car. They just, hopefully with the new driver they get next year, if they do bring in a new driver, they are able to, seal the deal and win a few races and make the playoffs. So I don't want to take too much time here. So I just want to jump in, get our war room faces in the gear here. So I'm just going to name off the guys that we know that 99% sure that they're going to make it past the round of 16, because that's all we're talking about today, round of 16. So you've got Harvick. He's moving on. Denny Hamlin's going to move on. Brad Keselowski will move on. Joey Logano will move on. Chase Elliott will move on. Martin Truex Jr. is going to move on. Ryan Blaney is going to move on. Now, if you guys oppose against anybody, you think they're not going to make it or is iffy, you got to let me know here. So, Alex Bowman.
No, I say he moves on. If we're talking the round of 16, I think he moves on.
I remember I looked a little bit before, just kind of checking out some stats on some of these drivers. I actually do not have Bowman going to the next round, and a lot of it comes just with the summary that we've seen of him during this year. he has shown speed, but the speed came in the first quarter of the year. And I feel like since then, there really hasn't been a whole lot that we've seen. Granted, he finished 5th at Dover a couple of weeks ago, which is good. Finished top 10 at Daytona, but that's just a wild card race. I just haven't seen enough from him to really say that he is going to get a spot in the top 8, or excuse me, the top 12. But we can talk about some of the other drivers first and then kind of come up with the consensus. I don't know if you have an opinion,
Yeah.
Don, about what you think about Bowman.
I think with Bowman, though, I think there have been a couple of races during that stretch where the 88 team just couldn't get the good finishes, that they were running towards the top in the top 10 and would either have a tire go down or some, engine let go or mechanical failure. They've been running all right. It's not like they've been running, 20th that much throughout the race. There have been a couple of races where they've been doing that, but they've been running, 11th, 12th kind of area. And even the races where they've been in the top 10, something's gone wrong. So it's not that they're so far off in speed that he's not going to have a chance. It's just, it's going to be getting through this first round is critical for them. Getting past round 12 is a different story, though.
Yeah, I think we should. We'll put him. We'll get back to Alex Bowman. We'll go through the rest of them, and we'll circle back to Alex Bowman to see if we'll put him in or not. All right, 9th seed William Byron.
Yeah, I think William Byron makes it. Crazy that it took until Dover for him to get his first top 5 of the year, and then back it up with a win at Daytona. I think they're finally, after that argument at the first Dover race with Chad Knaus, now I think they're like, oh, we need to be on the same page here. I do think William Byron makes it past the round of 16, makes it into the top 12. Just like Alex Bowman, we'll see. That's a different story getting past the round of 12, but I do see William Byron making it into the top 12.
I might have a lot of controversy behind me already here. Kicking off the show, but I actually didn't have Bowman, or excuse me, not Bowman. I didn't have Bowman going through, but I didn't have Byron either. And a big reason is because out of every start that he's had at Darlington, Richmond, and Bristol, he only has one top 10 in every start that he's had at all 3 of those tracks. And I know that he's shown speed, but a lot of the speed that he shows is early in the race. He doesn't finish well. I feel like he somewhat fades off. I don't know if it's just kind of the longevity of the race that gets to him, or if it's just kind of the execution aspect of it. So that's one thing that really concerns me, and also the fact that he didn't have a top 5 until these past 2 races. And the Daytona win, granted, he was up front most of the race, but he dodged a lot of bullets in that to get his first victory, because he could have very well been caught up in a couple of those wrecks. So it concerns me when I see a lot of the guys that are below him in points right now have a lot more consistency in their seasons, and then Byron not really being as consistent, but also really not being able to capitalize and finish where he needs to be. So if he had a little more aggression, I think that would help him. I think that he could do better, but we haven't really seen an aggressive Byron, and if that doesn't show up in this round, I don't think he's going to make it through the next.
So personally for me, Byron has done it's like the NFL. You look back at like those New York Giants Super Bowl winning teams where they were kind of mediocre, and then all of a sudden the last couple of weeks they win out to get in the playoffs and they just strike fire. That might be what's happening with William Byron right now. That argument at Dover, the first Dover race, could be the thing that lights that fire, that season-changing moment. And then to run really well in the top 5 most of the day at Dover the next day and get that top 5. Then to win at Daytona, I think that's going to propel them through the first round at least with all the momentum they're riding right now. So I'm going to say William Byron makes it, but we could definitely come back to him if we need people, to actually be eliminated.
I think also once you get your first win, we saw it with Chase Elliott too, like went 99 races, or it took until race 99 to win. And then it's just like the floodgates just open. you get that big, relief off your shoulders. Like, okay, we won. We know we can do that. Granted, it was Daytona, but you still won.
Mm-hmm.
You get that big weight off your shoulder. And it's like, okay, we can do this. We know that we can execute a full race and win. Now they just need to apply it to tracks that really depend on the driver. And these 3 tracks are really going to test William Byron to how much he can adapt to these different styles of racetracks.
Yeah. And Byron, yeah, the stats haven't shown it, but I think we've got a different William Byron right now. I don't think we've had a Byron with this much confidence going into this round. So confidence does a lot for you. It does a lot for these drivers. So I definitely watch out for William Byron in the round of 16. Next driver, the 10th seed, Austin Dillon.
No, this is one guy that I had out even before the playoffs started. Tyler Reddick has shown about equal speed. Dillon, I feel like just kind of lucks his way into the top 10 finishes that he's had a couple of good runs where he just run up in the top 10 all day. Got that win at Texas, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I don't see him getting a win in the round of 16. I see him just running behind the other playoff cars and, could get a top 10 at Bristol, Richmond. Darlington's not favorable to Austin Dillon either. Doesn't have good stats there. So I don't see Austin Dillon making it again in the round of 16.
I think there's a good chance he could, based on the fact of his prior playoff appearances. He's made it 3 years, and the only year he didn't make it was 2018, and that's because the road course is not Austin Dillon's thing. But other years that we've seen him in the playoffs, he's almost made it the round of 8 in both of the other 2 years. It seems like he kind of gets more into game mode once it gets to this part of the season, to where he puts himself in favorable positions and is able to run up front a little bit more in the playoffs. I think that's why we saw some success from him in 2016 and 17 when he got a playoff season. I mean, I think he was just inches away from missing it in 2017 at Talladega, or 16, one of the 2 years, but got beat out by 1 point over, it might have been Denny Hamlin. I can't remember. It was somebody. We saw him get be a little bit more competitive at I think it was Bristol this year. Was able to run up front, got caught up in a wreck at 1.2, but was able to recover back and be able to contend. But I think he's got a chance, but I'm going to say no as well. Just based off some of the other guys' consistency this season, I think that he's been a little bit more inconsistent than some of these other drivers that we're going to talk about, that might affect his performance. Especially if he does get through. I think the second round is going to be very, very tough for him, especially with that road course. I think the road courses are his biggest weakness. So, but when it comes to this round, I think there's a chance, based off some of these other drivers' inconsistencies, but he's been inconsistent a little bit this year too. So I'm going to say no.
Yeah, Austin Dillon to be difficult to advance to the round of 12 for that team. Team just isn't consistent enough. Doesn't run in the top 10 nearly enough as many of these guys do. So I think the 3 we'll have the 3 as the first guy eliminated. All right. Cole Custer.
No, once again, I don't see Cole Custer making it into the round of 12. The rookie of the year this year, that was already confirmed after Daytona. No, I still don't see enough out of Cole Custer. Honestly, even after that win at Kentucky and the great run at Indianapolis, I'm still not seeing playoff caliber runs out of Cole Custer in the 41 team. Darlington, Bristol, Richmond, 3 really tough racetracks, and this will be the first time for Cole Custer at Richmond in a cup car. So that in itself, with no practice, no qualifying, is going to be a struggle right off the bat for him. And at the first 2 Darlington races, he was nowhere to be seen for a long time. I think in really both of those races. So I don't see Cole Custer making it. I don't even really see him being close to the cutoff line either. So I have the 41 out.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Cole Custer, we haven't seen a lot from him. Granted, he is Rookie of the Year, and he was able to capitalize on a win earlier this season. But when I think of the rookie class, I've seen more out of Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell with their successes without a win than I've seen with Cole Custer in his runs, because he has not really been a big factor in many races. He has not really put himself in a big position to win races or competing even in the top 5 or top 10 unless it's come down to the very end of the race, which we did see at Kentucky when it was able to win. So that's one reason I'm concerned about him. And he's had quite a few finishes outside of the top 20 races where his name, I don't even think, was mentioned on the broadcast. So I feel like it's going to be a struggle for him. And another struggle is the fact that we have 4 Stewart-Haas cars all in the playoffs. A lot of the focus is going to be, I believe, on Kevin Harvick and Eric Almirola. I think that those two are kind of the dominant force right now of Stewart-Haas with their consistency. Boyer a little bit too, but he's still kind of lacking. But then you've got Cole Custer, this 4th car that just barely got in. I don't think he was even in the top 20 in points. So I for all those reasons combined, I just don't think that this is going to be the round for him to get through. And I don't think these tracks, like Steve mentioned, he's never raced at Richmond in the Cup car. I don't think it's going to be favorable to him once we get there, because Cole Custer is more of an adaptability kind of guy. It takes him a while to be able to get accustomed and just understand how to fit his attributes to a racetrack. So I feel like all that combined, this is just not going to work out for him in this round.
Yeah, wins don't mean everything. Like, you could win and solidify your spot in the playoffs, but if it wasn't for that win at Kentucky, I don't even think he was close to the point line. So that win was the only factor of him getting into the playoffs. If it wasn't for that, he wouldn't be in the playoffs right now. So it's not favorable for him.
I think Austin Dillon was still like 100 points ahead of him.
Yeah.
And he missed a race.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just to say that, I mean, that kind of shows Austin Dillon's not the fastest, nor is Tyler Reddick, but their team is, I would say, a little bit lesser of a team than Stewart-Haas. And they were still numerous points ahead. So I agree with Steve on that. I just don't see it happening. What do you think, Dom?
Yeah, no, you guys all said what realistically needed to be said, and there's not much to add to that. Cole Custer had one good restart, and that's what got him in the playoffs, and that's what happens with this system. We've seen it before. We've had guys that really shouldn't be in the playoffs, and it shows that they're not even in contention by that last race. They're usually already a full race and a must-win situation when it comes to that last race in the round. And asking Cole Custer to go out there and win one of these 3 races, it's just, I don't think it's going to happen.
This is the unfortunate part of the system too, is that Jimmy Johnson, if he would have finished that one lap at Darlington, if he wouldn't have got disqualified from Charlotte, if he wouldn't have gotten a positive COVID test at Indianapolis, he would solidly be in the playoffs right now. And I think that Jimmy Johnson deserves a spot more than a guy like Cole Custer, like you said, Dom, who got one lucky restart at Kentucky. And that's the unfortunate part about this system, is that you're going to have a guy like Cole Custer, who's really, that team hasn't been performing well all year long. They get a chance to go for the championship, but a guy like Jimmy Johnson doesn't, and still missed it by 6 points. That's incredible to think, with basically, you could really say missing 2 races with the one at Charlotte, and still only missed it by 6 points. That's the problem with this system. It makes for excitement, but like Brad Keselowski said, it's an entertainment sport, not a fair sport.
Yeah, no, definitely. And now the next guy, he hasn't won, doesn't have a win. He's the highest in points without a win. And that's Eric Almirola.
I do think Eric Almirola moves on. He's been probably the second best Stewart-Haas car. I mean, Kevin Harvick's in a league of his own. So when you look at the rest of the Stewart-Haas cars, I think Eric Almirola is the top guy outside of Kevin Harvick. Really, I mean, just went on that super hot streak during the summer where I forget how many races, 7. Correct me if I'm wrong there, guys, but just straight races of top 10s.
I think it was almost 10.
Was it? It's just some crazy number like that. I do think that Eric Almirola moves on. It's okay. Wes said it was 9. So thanks, Wes. Lost my track of thought there. I think he does move on. It's going to be tough because he's only got those 5 extra points. So as long as they can get solid finishes, get stage points, I think the 10 team will be just fine to have Eric Almirola moving on.
I'm with Steve. Almirola, when he can show kind of what he has, I feel like this has been a good year for it, especially after last year. Last year was just a rough season. We saw a couple highs and then numerous lows from the team that we wouldn't have expected to follow after his first year, which he showed quite a bit of success where it looked like he should have won like 4 or 5 races. He was in that many positions to win. And this year he's been in a few positions. He's led a lot of laps this season, more than any other season he's had. I think maybe almost more than combined in his entire career, which is pretty impressive from Almirola. It comes down, I think, to consistency and getting those stage points. And I feel like these tracks can be favorable to him. We've seen him run good at Bristol. I mean, that was the first track he ever got a top 10 in. Richmond's been fair at some points in his career. I remember there was one race where he and Kyle Busch started like 25th and 26th or something like that. And they finished first and second in the stage without a caution. They came from the back of the field and then finished 1-2 in the race. And Almirola was the fastest car on track. I don't think he finished well, but I remember he just came out of nowhere. So I think these tracks are favorable to him a little bit. I think Darlington, he had some good finishes there earlier in the year. I think this could be a fair round for him. We'll talk about it later, but the next round might be a little bit of trouble. We'll talk about that, I guess, next week or in a few weeks, not next week, once we get through this first round. But I do think Almirola will be good. Stewart-Haas looks sharp, and I think that with the help of his teammates and just the execution that he's had this year, I think he can get through.
There was that one year, too, where he was at Petty, and when Richmond was still the cutoff race, where he almost won that race in a Petty car.
He was on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, he was trying to race his way in the playoffs.
Yeah. He was a man on a mission that race. I forget.
Yeah, he was unstoppable. I think it was
16 or 17.
I think it was the first year he raced for Petty. Or it might have been later. I'm not 100% sure. It was 1 year. Maybe not the first year. But he just executed. I think I'm trying to find it real quick just so I get it right on here. 2015. I don't think he had one top 5 that whole year. No top 10s besides the top 5. So just one. And then just executed exactly when he needed to. So execution, I think, is going to be really important for him this week.
Yeah, and you get these short tracks, and the first thing you got to think about is speeding penalties, because the speed limit at these tracks are just that much slower than like 60 miles an hour at Daytona. You're going to get these 35 mile per hour pit road speeds. So
really tough pit roads to get onto as well. Just all 3 tracks are just really tough to get onto, especially Darlington. You're coming off of that high banking and you got to cut all the way down to the flat, but it's all the way down at the inside of the wall. So it's going to get tough for these guys. You got to try not to junk your car getting onto pit road.
Yeah, because Darlington, I think you're bound to see green flag pit stops, especially with it being the Southern 500 now, not, 300-mile races as we saw earlier in the year. And we always just seem to get those green flag pit stops at Darlington. And how many times have we seen people just miss pit road, just straight up miss it? And Richmond, you've got a shot at green flag pit stops. You don't usually get them, but they could happen. Bristol, I don't think you're going to see them. Bristol, usually you get a caution before you need to pit because it takes about 140 laps for you to even need to come down for fuel. Honestly, can't remember the last time we had green flag pit stops at Bristol. And so, yeah, Almirola is looking good. he's got just as many top 10s as Joey Logano this year. That's 14. So Almirola, I'd be shocked if he was on the bubble come Bristol. I think he should have a solid gap going into Bristol where he won't be in danger of being eliminated, obviously barring any mechanical failure or something crazy in the first 2 races. So next is his teammate, Clint Boyer, in 14.
Now, sorry, Wes, I'm going to hurt your feelings here. I got Boyer out.
This is actually going to be interesting because Wes told me something about Clint Boyer before the show, so this is going to be fun.
Okay, I'm excited. I didn't hear it, so I'm curious to hear what Wes got to say. No, I got Boyer out with that crew chief swap with Johnny Klossmeyer. Boyer, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just those consistent runs that he was able to point his way in and be like 50 points over the cut line. But man, it's not enough to move on. They had those couple flashes, like he dominated that second Darlington race, the first couple stages way back in the spring. And other than that, it's been a really quiet year for Clint Boyer, just getting consistent finishes, but it's not going to be enough to get past the round of 16. Even with these other guys that we were talking that they're just run quicker, that they're just straight up faster than Clint Boyer. And like we saw at Daytona, he just gets caught up in late wrecks. And yeah, I'm sorry, Wes, I know I hurt your feelings there, but Boyer's going to be out for me.
It's all good. Because I think Boyer will be in, and I think Boyer has a good shot, especially in this round, because these 3 tracks in particular have always been, I feel like recently, a big highlight for him. We've seen at Darlington earlier this year, he was up front, he put himself in good positions, but he didn't get able to get the finishes that he needed. I feel like a lot of it was just kind of bad luck struck with him. But we've seen him in previous years show really good speed at Darlington too. I think in the past few Richmond races, he's finished top 10 every single time. Past few Darlington races, he's been finishing top 5, top 10 every time. We saw Bristol. This is the second time this year where he's got a top 5 finish. He finished second, almost put himself in position to win, but he was in the top 10 the entire race. And at Richmond, he's always been a factor. It's the track he got his second ever win at. And that's a track that I feel like he's always been a contender up front. So I think that with the luck that Boyer's had, I think it's going to turn around. I'm a little bit biased, but just based on previous years, though, these have been the tracks that he's been able to execute and get the best finishes at. And I think that if he can take some of the, the experience that he's learned over the years, and also just the performance of Stuart Haas this year, especially with Kevin Harvick and Eric Almirola, and just be able to show what he's got, especially now when it's crunch time, now in the first round, I think he's got a really good shot to get to the next round. So for me, I actually do have Boyer getting through.
Yeah, Steve, I hate to team up on you like this, but this round, if it wasn't these tracks, I totally agree with you. But these tracks are just up Clint Boyer's alley. Like, this is Clint Boyer's round. So if Clint Boyer, he could walk here and get 3 straight top 10s. I think this is Clint Boyer's round. It'd be very hard unless he gets involved in something to where I don't see Boyer getting eliminated.
Yeah, that's very true. I completely see that and agree that these are great tracks for Clint Boyer. I just see it from the point of view that he's just not outrunning these guys that he needs to outrun. And he just, that 14 just has not had the speed. Granted, going to 3 great tracks for Clint Boyer, and I could be completely wrong. I would love to see Clint Boyer make it on, but I think I just have to take the fan in me back, and I have to look at it from a big picture and look at it as, is Clint Boyer outrunning the guys he needs to outrun? And he's not.
Well, we'll leave. I think we'll put Boyer in just for our whole move on here. So right now, so far, we only have Austin Dillon and Cole Custer being eliminated. And So we move on to our next driver. Obviously, everybody expected this guy to be the 14th seed coming into the season. I think people were putting money on it. So Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has not won. He's got one stage win, and by virtue of being ninth in the points going into the playoffs, he is now got 3 playoff points. And if the round ended now, he would be 1 point or 2 points out. So Kyle Busch.
Man, it's hard to imagine Kyle Busch in a position like this, especially with him, the last couple of years. Like I think you said, Dom, since 2015 has not missed the round of the championship 4 round. So it's hard to imagine now this year Kyle Busch only having one stage win and being seeded 13th in the playoffs. 14th?
Yeah, 14th.
14th. Okay. Let me make sure I got that right there. I do have Kyle Busch moving on, though. I think over the last couple weeks, I got the results pulled up here. If you take out the 2 races at Daytona, which the last weekend at Daytona had one of the best cars until Tyler Reddick just turned up the racetrack. So, but 5th at Michigan, 4th at Michigan, you had the Daytona road course, but then 3rd at Dover and was running solidly in the second Dover race, solidly in the top 10 and ended up finishing 11th. So I think Kyle Busch is finally starting to hit the stride that he needs to get there. I do think he'll get into the round of 12, considering that's what we're talking about today. I do see Kyle Busch moving on because Darlington, he's been really quick at. And who is going to say that Kyle Busch is going to run poor at Bristol? And then at Richmond, he's got a couple wins at Richmond too. So I see Kyle Busch cruising his way into the round of 12, even though he's only got those 3 extra points. I think this is going to be a really easy round for Kyle Busch to move on.
I'm with Steve. I think Kyle Busch pretty simply knows how to get it done when he needs to. And I know this hasn't been his year, and people are saying that it's the worst year he's ever had. But then again, I mean, he still has been a top 5 car in many, many races this year. So as long as he's just able, a word I've said all show, execution. I think if he can nail down some good finishes here, I don't see this being a problem for him. But it's really just hard to judge because anybody can have a bad day. And Kyle Busch has had a lot of bad days during the races this year. But I just think that when it comes down to doing what he has to do, Kyle Busch is one of the best to do it. I think Kyle Busch is arguably the best driver in NASCAR right now, still, even with the bad luck he's had. I'm not going to rank him lower because of a bad season. I think he's one of the best drivers in the world. Not going to take anything away from him for having a couple bad races every now and then this season. So I think that he can – I think he's one of the best guys to get it done as long as he doesn't get in too much over his head, which we've seen before. But I think as long as he straps down, stays focused, Kyle Busch will get through. So I have him advancing to the round of 12.
If Kyle Busch's car is still staying straight at the finish of these races, he'll make it to the next round. 3 of his best tracks statistically. He owns Richmond. He almost owns Richmond and Bristol too. He has the most wins there. And Darlington, he doesn't have the wins really to show for it, but he's always up front there. And it's Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is not getting eliminated in the round of 16. Now his brother Kurt, on the other hand, what are we looking at with Kurt Busch?
I do have Kurt Busch in. He's shown really good speed, just like Kyle at Darlington. I know he won a stage. Was it this year? I believe the first race won one of the stages. Mm-hmm. I want to say he was running solidly up inside the top 5 or at least a top 10 at both Darlington races this year. I know he won a stage at last year's Southern 500. But then, again, a Busch brother at Bristol, you're going to have a lot of wins. And Kurt Busch has 6 wins at Bristol. So he's going to run really good there. And then Richmond always runs really good at Richmond too. So I do have Kurt Busch moving on. It's not going to be as easy as his brother Kyle. I think he's going to be kind of close to that cutoff line. But I do have Kurt Busch moving on to the round of 12. This is going to be 3 really good tracks for him.
I do think Kurt Busch is going to go through. He's been extremely consistent this season. He's been partnered up with Matt Kenseth. And I know Matt Kenseth, we haven't seen a lot of speed from him, but it's just him hopping into a new car that he's not familiar with and having no practice time. We talked about it before. It hasn't been favorable to him, but having a veteran guy like Kenseth to kind of work with and have a partnership with, that's got to be good. I feel like Kurt Busch, the team dynamics right now at Chip Ganassi, especially for him, have been great. I think Kurt Busch is having a great time, even though he hasn't really been in the position to win as many races or any races this season, but just be in the positions that he wants to be. I think that's probably bugged him a little bit, but he still has shown good speed. I know he hasn't got a whole lot of stage points this season, but these tracks are very, very favorable to him. Steve mentioned Bristol, huge track, a track that he's dominated ever since he was a little kid early on in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. So I think Kurt Busch, this is going to be a good round for him. Similar to Steve, I think it might not be as easy for him as Kyle, but if he can just nail down the consistency like he's had earlier this season, the past couple races haven't been the best, but I think that Kurt Busch is definitely going to go through.
Yeah, round of 16, it's not too tough to get through. If you just execute and don't have many major mistakes in the round, you should be fine. You don't need to go out there and light up the world on fire to get past the round of 16. If you can get 2 top 10s and a top 15 with some stage points, I think you should be fine because people will falter. It's the playoffs, just the nature of it, and the tracks we're going to, people are going to have issues. So, and Kurt Busch has been one of the most consistent drivers all season. I think before that wreck at Dover, I think he was one of the leaders in laps completed this year. So Kurt Busch has been on the track for most of the laps this year. So I think Kurt Busch will make it through. Now the final driver, squeezing in by 6 points over Jimmy Johnson, Matt DiBenedetto.
Yeah, Matty D. Man, I'd love to see him make it all the way to the championship 4, but aside from Bristol, he runs really good at Bristol. So I think that's going to be kind of the one track. If you were a driver and you're looking at these 3 races, there's got to be one track that you're like, all right, we're going to put all our focus into in this round and just hope to get good finishes at the other 2. I think for Matt DiBenedetto, that one track is Bristol. That 21 car is going to be up front at Bristol, I feel like. As far as the other 2 tracks, though, it's going to be close. He's going to be really close to the cutoff line, I feel like, but I don't feel it's going to be enough for him just because of the competition that he's going up against. These are some good tracks for a lot of good drivers. And I don't see it being enough for Matt DiBenedetto on the 21 team, although I hope I'm wrong. I hope they prove me wrong on that.
And I'm with Steve. I hope to be proven wrong because I do not have Matty D going to the next round. I know he's a fan favorite. I've never met a guy in my life that says I don't like Matt DiBenedetto. Could you imagine somebody saying that? I feel like that'd be a sin.
Then you'd be punched in the face.
Yeah, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. No, but I think he's got a shot. I mean, we've seen consistency from him at certain times this year, but the lack of stage points, just where some of the other teams are with their competition this season, I feel like it kind of puts him in a vulnerable position. Now, if he does get eliminated, I think that he's got a good shot, surprisingly, to finish top 10 in points. And I'm saying that because I feel like a lot of drivers that are above him are inconsistent. But just in this round in particular, I just don't see him getting through. Bristol could be a good track for him, but if he doesn't get a win, I just don't know where he's going to be able to get those stage points from. But I think he's got a good shot in the big scheme of things to be able to get a good finishing position at the end of the season in points. Just not really in this round. I feel like this round might be a little bit of a hurt for him. We'll find out. But for me, I do not have the Wood Brothers team, number 21 team, going through.
Yeah, if you asked me maybe a month or 2 ago, yeah, I'd say Matt DiBenedetto is going to be a lock for the round of 12. This past month or so, he almost fell out of the playoffs, and he had a big buffer. He wasn't even in a conversation for being on the bubble.
Yeah, he was like 50 points over, I feel like.
Yeah,
He was up hanging
way
around
up
Boyer.
there. Yeah, and then he just fell off.
I think once it got to Dover, he just didn't get any stage points. I don't think he got but 1 or 2 at Daytona. So it really just put him in a bad position with Jimmy Johnson and Byron being able to make up those points because they were able to get stage points and contend. So it really hurt DiBenedetto not getting those stage points. And that's what I feel like might affect him in this first round.
Yeah, and every point matters. And right now he doesn't have any points. He's got 0 playoff points, the only driver in that situation. So he's already playing with a 5-point deficit. And that could grow really quickly if you don't pick up stage points. And I just don't see it this year for him. So now we have 3 guys eliminated. The 3 of Austin Dillon, 41 of Cole Custer, and the 21 of Matt DiBenedetto. So that leaves it down to 2 Hendrick guys, the 88 and the 24. We had Wesay out on both of them. So, Steve, who is it? The 88 or the 24? Who do you think is going out? It comes down to those 2 at the end of Bristol.
And it comes down to those 2. Gosh, so many variables going into it. Bowman's up 9 points. Byron's up 7 points. Man, if you're just looking off of the factor of just looking at the recent string of races, I'm going to go with Bowman out and Byron in. I think if you're just going off of that. But gosh, man, that's tough. That's really tough because I think they're both in similar situations. But I think right now that William Byron is just performing at that next level that we needed to see out of that team. And Alex Bowman, great guys, that team is just not there yet. So if I had to choose one of those 2 guys to be out, it'd be Alex Bowman.
Wes, you said they're both out. You got to pick one in.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit tough. I think for me, I lean more towards Bowman on getting in, surprisingly. And a lot of it's because of what I talked about earlier with Byron. It's just out of all these tracks, I mean, he has 1 top 10 competing, I guess, in I don't know how many starts, 3 times 2 full seasons and maybe a couple more. So in like 10 or 11 or 12 starts, only 1 top 10. It's not really that impressive of a stat. And these are tracks where we've seen Byron start really strong and then fade off because, as Steve mentioned earlier too, these are driver tracks. And I'm not taking anything away from Byron, but we haven't seen him be able to just capitalize and materialize on a good finish at the end of the day because he always tends to fade off at the end of these races. And these races are going to be pretty long. And I feel like if we see what we've seen before and he doesn't step up, he's going to be in the same situation he's been the rest pretty much all this season and every other season that he's had. So
this is different though. This is the playoffs now. Things are going to get ramped up. It's just a different energy in the playoffs. Just like, you look at all the other sports, you look at baseball, football, there is a completely different energy to a team in the playoffs just coming off of a win. It's like that, bottom of the 9th kind of walk-off home run kind of energy. You walk into that next game, that next race, and you just have this swagger going on.
Yeah, you look back at that the Cardinals and Rangers World Series, Game 6, and David Freese sends it to Game 7, and you just knew the Cardinals weren't losing after that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like that with William Byron, and I'm going with Steve on this one. I'm sorry, I disagreed with Steve before, but I'm going with Steve on this one. I just don't see William Byron getting eliminated in the first round. They made it to the round of 12 last year, and they look more dangerous right now than they did last year. So I think William Byron is a serious threat to get past this round, and honestly a sleeper to maybe get to the round of 8. I'm not going to push it and say he's going to make the championship 4 But right now, I'm taking him over Bowman. Bowman just hasn't been there. I know he's good at Darlington, but man, that way the team's been running, I don't know if that past success at Darlington's going to matter.
Maybe use a little bit of the Jimmy Johnson paint scheme magic.
Because plus you got Byron won stage 1 in the first Darlington race.
Yep.
Had a good car until I think he got in the wall and then cut the tire down. So I think that those are mistakes he's going to learn from. He knows it's going to be a 500-mile race this week, so maybe takes it a little easier. But I do like the point, Wes, you've been making, where it might be these long races that have maybe affected Byron. And I think that happens with a lot of these young guys coming up. I'd say Christopher Bell, for an example. He could be up there for a little while, but then it's like almost like that last 100 miles. It's so much harder to put that last 100 miles together because you're so used to running 200, 300-mile races. Then you get put in a situation where you got to run that extra 100, 200 miles. It really takes a toll on these guys, and they're not mentally or physically ready for, almost double the length and really double the competition. You're having to compete at such a high level for 4 hours straight. It could really take a toll on these guys, and that's why I still think these veterans are still going on top. No one's knocking out these veterans. Look at Harvick and Hamlin right now. They're two of the most experienced drivers in the field, and nobody can stop them.
Exactly. That's a good point to make. And that's one reason why I am just worried about Byron. I know you guys said that he does have this momentum, but how is the momentum going to help him at these tracks where it's so physically demanding? That's where I'm just not 100% confident in him to say, even though he does have this victory and he has looked good these past couple races, it's hard to just completely just change my thought and say, well, he's going to be a top 5 car now every single week because he missed a couple wrecks at Daytona and got a win. So that's one reason why I am concerned. But you do make good points. Bowman hasn't really shown that speed either. And his inconsistency has been a little bit more than Byron's. Byron still has at least been able to capitalize on like top 15 pit finishes. So I'm willing to switch over and go with Bowman out in the round of 16.
So yeah, our 4 drivers out after the round of 16 are Austin Dillon, Cole Custer, Matt DiBenedetto, and Alex Bowman. Now we'll move into this week only at Darlington for the Southern 500. All these throwbacks in the field. Wes, you're first since you haven't made a pick in forever. Wes, who's going to win in the Southern 500 and maybe even advance themselves to the round of 12?
Well, my pick for the Southern 500, I'm not 100% sure, honestly. I feel like there's a couple guys I can go with. I would love to pick, Eric Jones, but we know that's probably not going to happen now. Poor guy.
Wonder if he's still looking for his first ever win in the Cup Series.
He hasn't won yet in the Cup Series. That's why we got to hope maybe he can put something together. I don't know who won Darlington last year, but hopefully Jones can get his first year. It'd be impressive. Haven't seen him get a top 10 yet at Darlington, so we'll have to. Man, if people are watching, they're going to be like, "What are you talking about?" No, I'm probably going to pick because I can't pick Larson. Oh man, I'm trying to think of somebody good to pick. I might just go with Denny Hamlin. I like Denny Hamlin. Might have taken one of your 2 picks, but Denny Hamlin, such a good driver, especially when it comes to driver's track. Something we just talked about. Dom, you mentioned it. These older guys are excellent at getting the job done at tracks that just take a big toll on your body. And I think Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick, 2 of the more fit guys in the field, I think they're going to run up front. I think it'll be a battle between them. And I think Hamlin will be able to get the job done like we saw him get it done in the second Darlington race this season. And also, before we move on, I'll just say too, I don't know if you 2 want to mention it too, your favorite throwback. Got to mention the throwback scheme.
Yeah.
I figured I'd bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pick I mentioned it to Dom before. I don't think I told Steve, but my favorite throwback this week comes down to either Hemrick or Chad Fincham, but I went with Chad Fincham. I would love Jerry Nadeau when I was a kid. He was one of my probably top 5 favorite drivers growing up, and he's throwing it back to well, Chad Fincham's throwing it back to Jerry Nadeau. So, and the scheme was just executed perfectly. So it's really cool to see a scheme from a driver that I really liked growing up as a kid. Granted, I was too young to really see that car because it was kind of before my time. But just seeing a driver that I used to love like him back on kind of on the track with his car and just the execution of it, I think it's great.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot of great paint schemes, like always at Darlington. I'll start with the paint scheme. If in the Xfinity side, I really like Michael Annette's throwback with the Oreo. I really like that car back from, what was it? Dale Jr. ran that, I believe, in the Busch Series. I think it was at Daytona too. He ran that.
2002 was the year after the passing of his dad, and he ran that in the Busch Series in a Richard Childress car, and went on to win that race.
Yeah, and for the Cup Series, Hamlin's is really good, but I don't want to be biased. Those Hendrick cars are pretty nice. I'm gonna go with the 10. I'll go with Almirola's. I really like that car. Shout out to our friend Roberto Ramirez for designing that car. You can check him out at Bolts Designs on Instagram. He designs a lot of paint schemes for Stewart Haas Racing and even more than that. So definitely check those out. He's really good. I just like the throwback on that. I know Wes tweeted about that earlier today.
Yeah, that was Fireball Roberts was one of my dad's favorite NASCAR drivers. He had a couple that he really loved, and that was one that he always talked about growing up. So when I was younger, I was like always sneaking on the computer and looking up Fireball Roberts, trying to figure out about him. So it's cool that Roberto was able to help with that, but also to see it back on the track. I know my dad would love to see it, but yeah, it's really cool. I'm glad Eric Almirola's running it, and he might be able to get a good finish with this. So we'll have to see how he does.
Yeah, definitely. And for my race pick, well, I guess if Wes took Hamlin, I mean, I wasn't going to pick him, but I'm going to go Harvick because I need a win. I need to catch. I think I'm 1 or 2 behind Steve, so I need to get back in the winners column, catch back up to Steve, and beat him by the end of the season because I can't let Steve beat me in race win picks this season. This just can't happen. I won our fantasy regular season on NASCAR Fantasy. I passed Wes in the last race at Daytona.
Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes not making my picks when I should have been, so kind of cost myself.
Okay, Jimmy Johnson. But Steve, you get to pick last now. So
yeah, I get to pick last, thanks to Eric Jones getting completely bamboozled by Tyler Reddick. So, man, my first pick was going to be Hamlin. My second pick was going to be Harvick. You guys both picked those, of course. So I'm going to resort to, I haven't picked this guy for a while, but I'm going to go with one of the Elliott Sadler throwbacks for my race win. I'm going Kyle Busch.
Hunter Nemechek?
No. We're making realistic picks here. I'm going Kyle Busch in the 18, a really nice throwback to Elliott Sadler. So I got him winning on Sunday. As far as the best throwback, I'm actually going to go Timmy Hill. He's got the throwback to Phil Parsons' 1984 Skull Bandit. And the way that they designed that car with roofclaim.com and they made the Bandit again, they made that car look really nice. So I got Timmy Hill, hands down the best throwback. Although I do agree with Wes that Chad Fincham 13 car, the second, I mean, that's right up there at the top.
Man, it's fire. I love seeing old Jerry Nadeau. I mean, he was such just a friendly guy on the track, but that's a good one too. I think a lot of schemes this week I think this might be the best year for throwbacks. I feel like the execution on quite a bit of these cars have just been on another level from other years that we've seen. So it'll be great to see a lot of these schemes on the track and hopefully see one that's actually, a throwback scheme win the race and not one that's, I don't know, no knock on Keselowski's scheme, but I don't know, just not a whole lot there. that might see, I don't know, not really.
There's 2 cars I need to see before I make a serious judgment on it. One is Jimmy Johnson's car. I need to see it on the track to really give a real opinion on it, because right now it doesn't look too good. I like the idea. The concept is fantastic.
Yeah.
I need to see that car on the track. I think the renderings right now may not do it justice. And
I think seeing it on track, it'll be a lot better. I'm one of the few, I feel like, that on Twitter, as soon as I saw it, I was like, that is a great paint scheme.
Mm-hmm.
You willing to take bets on how long before Teresa Earnhardt files a lawsuit?
I bet she already did.
I bet so.
Well, and another one is Christopher Bell's. They had a side angle of it, but I don't know, because they're taking his truck championship paint scheme with JBL and putting that on the car this week. And a lot of people on Twitter thought that was very weak, and they thought they could have thrown it back to like 2012 when McDowell was in the 95, or Scott Speed.
Yep, especially with them on their way out. Yeah.
So
yeah,
I want to see how that car looks, because I don't think we've really seen a truck paint scheme thrown onto a cup car. So that'll be an interesting concept. And another paint scheme I really like from the trucks, there's a couple of them. I know Wes really likes Greg Biffle's paint scheme this week. He's running Jack Sprague throwback.
yes, I love a good. I'm pretty sure it's Jack Sprague, I'd assume, since that was exactly the car that he had. So,
or when Ricky Hendrick was in that truck,
it was I guess
one of those two.
Based off the same, I'm saying Jack Sprague. Now, I could be wrong. People give me a hard time. I just say go Jack Sprague. One of my another favorite driver as a kid. So cool to see. Their entire team, GMS, just went above and beyond with every single scheme that they have this year, from Jimmy Johnson to a throwback to Wood Brothers original days, and then I can't remember every scheme they had. Jack Sprague or the Ricky Hendrick scheme.
They had a Kale one.
Kale Yarbrough.
Yeah,
absolutely. They might have just sealed the I don't know, the icing on the cake there with schemes this week, because they just did a phenomenal job.
It was really cool to see Derek Kraus and Napa. They threw it back to Ron Hornaday, the original days where Ron Hornaday was driving that 16 Napa truck. They made that look really nice, and Ron Hornaday, my favorite truck driver of all time. So it was really cool to see Derek Kraus and that team do that.
Is that why you don't like Kyle Busch?
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, that really kind of fueled most of it. It was even before that, but yeah, that didn't help at all.
So I think that's all we've got, except one last thing. If you stuck around for this long, I know I didn't even hint at it before, but it just, came to my head. Next week, we're going to have a really special guest for episode 20 of the Four and Field podcast. We're going to be getting former NASCAR announcer Ralph Shaheen on the podcast next week. Going to be really fun. Can't wait to hear from him, especially since he's been doing the Supercross for so long. I kind of want to talk about that a little bit too, and then obviously about his time at NASCAR on TNT with the Cup races, and even some time in the Truck Series on FS1. So that I can't wait. I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been around commentating for so many years. It'll be really interesting to kind of pick his brain and see how we always talk about how the drivers kind of view things. And I'm always curious to see how it is on the other side with the commentating. So really excited to get Ralph Shaheen on next week.
Yeah, and hopefully Wes can finally join us for a guest episode. I don't think Wes has been here when we've had a guest, so Wes needs to get some experience.
Yeah, I have not yet, so I guess it'll be special guest Ralph Shaheen and Wes Riddle. I'll be there next week, so I'm looking forward to joining you two and being able to chat with a guy that's been around for a long time. It's really cool to think back to our childhood and see somebody that we had on the TV screens and now are going to have the chance to speak with him, because he's a phenomenal guy, and definitely looking forward to speaking with him.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, our War Room episode, and hopefully next week you tune in to check out Ralph Shaheen on the Four and Field podcast. Other than that, enjoy Throwback Weekend, enjoy the paint schemes, enjoy the racing, all 3 series this weekend at Darlington. Other than that, have a good one and enjoy the rest of your week.